Hello, hello. Am I audible?
Yes, ma'am.
I think we should start. Others may join in the meantime. Is my screen visible?
Yes,
Yes, ma'am.
Anytime in the during the class, I'm not audible or my screen is not visible. You guys can tell me, okay? So
Okay, ma'am.
let me start. Just a minute. So coming on to the next lecture, next means second week of our class on the course Petroleum Technology. So in this second week tutorial, we will be, I hope you guys are following Professor Sonali Sen Gupta's class. So, uh, likewise, I will be giving an overview of whatever she taught during this whole week. So, in today's week, we will be focusing on different distillation, different processes, how to process crude oil to get various products, mean various products that can be usable, that can be in a more usable form. Since crude oil, you cannot use it in its raw form. We need to process it to produce various various products. Depending on the specifications of different countries, we need to process our crude oil to make it in a more usable form, and to eliminate various components present in the crude oil which are not good for usage. Suppose there are various metal contents are present, then uh, sulfur is present, oxygen is present, nitrogen is present. All these components are they are not good for usage in our final products like petroleum, diesel, as they are corroding and disturbing in nature. So we need to remove all these components. So coming on to the beginning, which is the introduction of primary processing of crude oil. So there are basically different types of processing is done in the crude oil. So first is crude oil. Basically, petroleum refining. It is the crude oil is converted to commercial product by combining different processes. Mean there are physical processes also involved and chemical processes are also involved. So in this today's class, we will be focusing mainly on the physical processes, which are just a second, someone is trying to join. Okay, so in this today's class, we will be focusing mainly on the physical processes. So crude oil is basically there are two ways of processing crude oil in a physical process. Basically, distillation is done. The first one is the atmospheric distillation, and the second one is the vacuum distillation. From the name itself, it is showing that it is done at atmospheric conditions and it is done at in vacuum. And there are various other forms, the various other processes which involves chemical processes are also there, which for the processing of crude oil. So, for example, cracking, reforming, and hydrotreating. There are many more, such as visbreaking, fluidized catalytic cracking, etc. There are many other processes which we will be studying further in our coming weeks. So coming on to the introduction of crude oil, there are various essential equipments which are required for crude oil distillation units. So as I told, there are two different distillation units which are mainly crude distillation processes which are mainly done in a refinery, in a petroleum refinery. The first one is atmospheric distillation unit and the second one is vacuum distillation unit. So various equipments are required for these processes during this atmospheric and vacuum distillation. There are various equipments which are required. So some mainly they are the pipe still heater. It is basically the heater which is mean before introducing crude oil into a distillation column. Heating of the crude oil is required for that purpose pipe still heater mainly in the form of furnace you will see in upcoming flow sheets. I will show you. Then there is the fractionating tower. This is mainly the distillation tower in which the crude oil is introduced and distillation takes place in this fractionating tower. Then steam stripping columns are there for these side cut columns are there in which when the crude oil is distilled and different cuts, mainly different products are taken out from the side from different trays of the fractionating column. On different trays, different product is taken out. These products are not directly taken out as it may contain some lower boiling products as well. So these side stream stripping columns are sorry. So these side steam stripping columns are introduced so that this side products they are taken back. They are means some amount of reflux. They are heated in this stripping column and some amount of the lighter products is present in a definite cut that is reflux back into the reflux back into the just a second. So that product is refluxed back into our distillation column. We will be discussing all these in detail. Then there are heat exchangers for the uh, heating and cooling purpose. Then condensers and coolers are there for the similar thing for the condensation for the for the cooling of the vapor. Then pumps and connecting lines are there. Storage and accumulator tanks, which are also very important components for the storage of our final products, as well as for the transportation purpose. Also, these storage and accumulator tanks are required, and various other instrumentations are also involved in the crude distillation. Before adapting to the process of a particular stock, the following factors must be taken care. Before taking a crude different before taking a definite stock of crude for distillation, these factors should be taken into account. We should know the boiling range of our stock, mean the crude oil that we are wanting to distill. We should know the boiling range, the lower so to ensure that up to what temperature we can heat the crude oil and so that if we heat it beyond that range, then cracking of the crude oil may take place, and that may lead to deposition of coke, and failure of the distillation column may also occur. The stability of the stock with respect to heat, we should know that if our crude oil either it is sensitive to heat or not, and if such problem is there, then definite measures need to be taken. And the specifications of the product to be produced mean as we all know there are different products that we get from the refinery such as petroleum, diesel, which are used in our daily life. So there are specifications given by the government of different countries. These specifications varies from country to country. So we should know the specification of a definite country, that what is the specification of the product that is required. Coming on to the introduction of the crude distillation. So what happens is it is a flow sheet which gives overview of how crude distillation takes place. So from here, crude oil is taken to the desalter. What is desalter? We will be discussing further. Mainly, it is for the removal of unwanted salts which are present in the crude oil. Salts such as NaCl and VCl2, various or other salts. All these salts they may cause fouling and scaling of the distillation column. So before sending this crude oil into the distillation column, distillation for atmospheric distillation, we need to remove all these salts. So we will be discussing this desalter in detail. Then after desalter, this crude oil is taken to the distillation column where there are numerous trays available, and during and after the distillation, different cuts of the product are given. The lighter products, lighter cuts are taken off as the off gas, which are the non-condensable gases, basically, which are taken off as off gas, and they consist mainly of hydrogen or either some amount of hydrogen sulfide, and C1 to C4 cut is taken off as off gas. They are basically the lighter hydrocarbons which are present in the gaseous form. And from the side cuts, we further different cuts. Basically, these products which we take out from the distillation column, they are called the cuts. So we will be further calling them the cuts for your for convenience purpose. So different cuts are taken out from the side from the different trays of a distillation column. Further, after the gaseous state, then the liquid products, liquid cuts are taken out from the side trays. The which is first one is the light naphtha, which is the from the which is basically the C4 cut hydrocarbon, which has a boiling point up to 90 degree. Then further C4 cuts from 90 to 140 degree, that is the heavy naphtha. Then the kerosene, which has a boiling point in the range of 140 to 240 degree C, and then gas oil, which is in the range of 240 to 340. So all these are the liquid cuts. This one is the gaseous cut. This is the these four are the liquid cuts, and these are produced from the atmospheric distillation unit. And apart from that, all these are the lighter cuts which are taken out from the side. What we get, what else we get? We get the atmospheric residue. Whatever heavier cut is left and cannot be processed in the atmospheric distillation unit is taken off as the atmospheric residue, which is the main product of the of our vacuum distillation unit. Further, this atmospheric residue will be processed at vacuum in the vacuum distillation unit, and we will get the vacuum gas oil as the vacuum gas oil as the side cut, that is the liquid portion, and then the from the below portion which cannot be processed here further in the vacuum distillation unit will be taken out as the vacuum residue. Now coming on to, as I told, that first portion is the desalter. So we will be discussing the desalter. That is crude desalter. The as I told, that different salts which are contained in the crude oil, as I told you earlier, basically NaCl, CaCl2, then MgCl2, they are soluble in water, and but they are present in some amount in crude oil, as the crude oil is taken out from the below the earth. So so there is presence of different kind of hetero components, such as I told in the last class, such as nitrogen also is present, some amount of nitrogen, sulfur, then these salts are present, then some metal contents are also present. So all these are unwanted things which causes disturbance and corrosion in the during a distillation process. So we need to remove all these. So for that purpose, as we know, these salts are soluble in water. They are soluble in water. So we will be introducing water for removal of these salts present in the crude oil. So these contaminants, they cause, as I told, they cause corrosion, foiling, then plugging, and catalyst deactivation of the refining unit. So the purpose of desalter is to remove such contaminants by water washing, followed by coalescing these dirty water and separating by electrostatic force. So unit of measure of salt chloride content is expressed in PTP, which is pounds of NaCl per 1,000 barrel of crude oil. So the water in oil emulsion is broken in electric desalter, and water is separated from oil. So let me come to this flow sheet where you will understand more clearly. So what we will do this, we will take the crude oil from here, and some amount of demulsifier will be introduced. As we know that oil and water, they are not miscible. So it forms a emulsion, oil in water emulsion. Sorry, it forms a water in oil emulsion. So to demulsify that, we are introducing some kind of chemicals which are demulsifiers, and this from here we will introduce water. So from here, this crude oil mixture of crude oil and demulsifiers will be introduced, and it will be heated using this heat exchanger. It will be exchanging heat from the heat exchanger and heated. Some amount of water will be added from here itself, and some amount will be added afterwards as well. So 5 to 7% of water of the crude oil, 5 to 7% of the crude oil, uh, that much amount of water we add in the crude oil. And after this heat exchanging, what will happen? This mixture of water, crude oil, and emulsifiers will be taken to the mixing wall where thorough mixing of this crude oil and water takes place. So what happens? It forms a water and oil emulsion. For what reason? This water in oil emulsion during this mixing comes in very close contact. This water comes in very close contact with oil, and all the salts which are present in the oil gets dissolved. Coming into the contact with water, it gets dissolved in water. So basically, now it is a water and oil emulsion, and then this mixture is taken to a desalter where we provide electrostatic charge. A charge of 10 to 30 kilowatt electrostatic charge is provided, which what happens with this electrostatic charge, it is showing here that these will coalesce the dirty water. The water droplets will get stabilized and will get coalesced with each other, and it will form two layers. Firstly, it is a mixture, mean it is a water and oil emulsion, but after providing this electrostatic charge, this separation of this water with oil happens. But now, what is our advantage? That this water contains all the salt present in the crude oil. So, here we have water and here we have our crude oil. Crude oil is taken up from the upper side and the water is taken out, dirty water is taken up as the effluent water. So like this, what we have done, we have removed all the dissolved salts present in the crude oil in the desalted unit. Coming on to the operation conditions of desalter, so typical pressure which is required in a desalting process is 5 to 1000 kilopascal of pressure is required. Then a typical operating temperature of desalting process is 100 to 150 degrees C of temperature is required, and wash water, that is 5 to 7% volume percent of the crude oil, as I told you earlier also 5 to 7% here. Then single stage efficiencies, if we do a single stage desalting, then the efficiency is 85 to 95%. Typical salt content of desalted crude is 2 to 5 ppb. Mean in a single stage, typically it can remove from 2 to 5 pounds of NaCl per thousand barrels of crude. And in a two stage efficiency, the efficiency increases to 97 to 97%, 97 to 99%. And here typical salt content of desalted crude, when salt content in the crude, when the presence of salt content in the crude is this much, then we do a two-stage, desalting. Now coming on to the atmospheric distillation. So in the atmospheric distillation, this is as shown here, after the desalter, we take this crude oil to atmospheric distillation unit. So this is a flow sheet of atmospheric distillation column. Am I audible to you guys?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So the atmospheric distillation, what happens in the atmospheric distillation unit? The crude oil, as you can see, we have crude oil here. This crude oil goes, passes through different pump around reflux systems and exchange heat from various pump around reflux systems. This reflux system is from this atmospheric distillation column only. So it exchanges heat from these heat exchangers and then passes on to who then passes after exchanging heat from this pump around reflux system, it passes from here to this desalter unit where we introduce fresh water for, as I told, that water is required. Here desalting takes place and effluent water comes out from below, and the crude oil, salt-free crude oil, it goes from this, grows from above. It goes up from above stream of the desalter, as you and it further exchanges heat from the atmospheric residue, and also the side steam cuts of the different light cuts of the that atmospheric distillation unit. It also exchanges heat from these side steam strippers, and further after this all this heat exchanging, after all this heat exchanging, it comes from this portion, is this path, taking this path. Mean you can see this is our crude oil. It exchanges heat from here, then it exchanges heat from all these heat exchangers. And after exchanging heat from all these heat exchangers, it goes from this path to this crude oil, to this crude furnace. Further, it gets heated up here, and this heated crude oil is flashed into our atmospheric distillation column, into our feed tray. And further, the lighter vapor cuts goes above, and the heavier liquid portion goes below. So this liquid portion, it may also consist of some amount of lighter cuts. So for that purpose, we have introduced steam from this, from below of this atmospheric distillation column. So along with this heat, if this heat takes, if there are any lighter cuts present in this liquid portion, then this steam takes that also with it. So this steam with the lighter cuts, along with this lighter cuts from the feed from our crude oil, goes up through different bubble caps, and through different trays. It goes up, and the lighter cuts, the which are the non-condensable gases, it goes from this upper portion, and further it gets separated here. It gets condensed here, and this lighter portion, these are the lighter cuts. Mainly this is the gaseous portion, which has the lowest boiling point. So it goes up from into this stripper. Just a second, someone is trying to run. Mm, mm, mm. So this lighter portion, it separates again here, condenses here again by giving off the off gases. These are the non-condensable gases, as I told, the off gases, and the lower portion, which consists of the full range naphtha. This again is sent to a debutanizer and splitter. What happens here? It separates the lighter and heavier naphtha portion. Debutanizer is basically separating the butane C4 cut. So the non-condensable gases, if any present in this portion again, if present, then is given out as off gases, and further the C4 mean the butane cut, C4 cut is given out as the lighter naphtha, and mean debutanizer here all the C4 cuts, different C4 cuts, as it may be butane, then butene. So all that different cuts are separated here in the debutanizer and splitter. Moreover, different other cuts, this is the lightest cuts, some various other cuts are also present in the crude oil. So they are given out as different cuts. That is the kerosene, light gas oil, heavy gas oil. So these kerosene, light gas oil, heavy gas oil are not directly given out, but it again passes through a steam stripper. For what purpose? For stabilizing of our side cuts. Suppose this is a kerosene cut given out, it will pass through the stripper, and if some portion of this kerosene consists of much lighter cuts in compared to this kerosene, those lighter cuts will be given back as reflux. Similarly, in LGO, if this LGO consists of some portion of kerosene, it will be given off as reflux in the plate higher than the plates from which this LGO LGO has been taken. So like this, what will happen? There Stabilization of these side cuts will occur, So what will happen that even at room temperature, even at the atmospheric conditions, these cuts will not be producing vapors, will not be producing the lighter cuts. So it will be stabilizing, standardizing its flash point. Okay, so for that purpose, steam strippers are available. So it will be further increasing the fractionation in this distillation column. So these side cuts will be produced. After that, all the other portion which is not processable in this atmospheric distillation column will be taken out as atmospheric residue. Okay, this is a complete distillation column which involves both uh, atmospheric distillation column where distillation unit plus vacuum distillation unit. Since we can see then in atmospheric distillation column mostly we can produce up to diesel oils. These are the lighter portions which can be produced in atmospheric distillation unit. Below that these lubricating oil, fuel oil and the residue they are a portion of vacuum distillation unit. We will be studying it further. I will be telling you. So this is the lighter portion, which is C1 to C4. Then the C5 to C9 cuts are of the naphtha, then petrol, then kerosene and diesel oils. These are all produced in the atmospheric distillation unit. And apart from that, the heavier cuts such as the lubricating oils, then the fuel oils and the vacuum residue, it is produced from the vacuum distillation unit. Coming on to naphtha separation system, as I told, shown you, as it is shown here, this portion. It is the naphtha separation system. As I told you, it is for the separation of butane portion. So naphtha separation system we will be discussing here. So as this is it is taking the overhead from atmospheric distillation unit. So this is atmospheric distillation overhead is taken. It is taken to the condenser. Then vaporization of these some vaporization and condensation of this overhead vapors of from the atmospheric distillation unit takes place by cooling, and the non-condensable gases are given off as off gases, and the lower portion, the lower cut, which is the liquid portion, is taken off to a debutanizer where separation of butane cuts happen. It is not that only butane will be present in our crude oil. Butane may be present, butene may be present, then triple bond C4 of triple bond may also be present. So that's why it is sent to a debutanizer where separation of butane and butene cut takes place. Further, after the splitting, it is given off as light naphtha, which is C5 cut to a boiling range of 90 degree, and the heavier naphtha, which is from the in a higher boiling range, which is 90 to 140 degree. Now coming to stream stripping in ADU. As these, you might be wondering what are these steam strippers. We will be discussing them in detail. What are these steam strippers? Now we will be discussing. So what happens is we don't take out these stripper cuts like suppose in the last slide it is shown kerosene. Then what is there? Then it is light gas oil and heavy gas oil. Light gas oil and heavy gas oil. Okay. So we can do one thing also. We can also take out these directly. You may say that why not to take out this kerosene, light gas oil, and heavy gas oil directly? So, but why we did not take out these side cuts directly? For a reason to furthermore purify it. Basically, in a simple layman language, we can say for further purification of these kerosene cuts, we do the steam stripping. So steam is introduced at the bottom. As you can see here, steam, if this is the kerosene portion, this is the portion coming from the atmospheric distillation unit. This is the kerosene portion. From here, steam will be introduced. This kerosene is coming below. This steam, when it will go up, what will happen? It will take up the lighter portions present in this kerosene. It will take along with it, and the lighter portions will be taken out as reflux along with it in the upper plate. Suppose we are getting our kerosene from at this plate, the lower plate. So the lighter portion obviously is obviously it should if there are lighter portion, it will be coming out in the upper plates. So we are taking this kerosene from this lower plate, and if steam along with it, if there are some lighter portions, lighter than the kerosene portions are also available in this cut, then this steam take those lighter portion along with it to the upper plate and give it as reflux to the upper plate, than the one from which kerosene was taken. So, and the lower portion, which is the kerosene, this which is the pure kerosene portion, is given out from the below portion. So, in this way, kerosene is purified in a much better way. What happens is now, if we take this kerosene at atmospheric conditions also, there will be no lighter portions present in the kerosene, and that's why, in other words, we can say that it stabilized the kerosene. Basically, the flash point of this kerosene is stabilized. The steam stripping is used to recover the lighter fractions from liquid steam or products, and the rate of steam addition is usually 10 to 50 kg per meter square. Okay, so this is the feed charge system. So basically, as I have shown here in this portion, we introduce the feed directly. But it is not that we take the crude oil and directly introduce into our atmospheric distillation column. What happens that there are different types of feed charge system. There are different ways we can introduce feed into our distillation column. The first one is non-pre. The first one is non-pre-flash system. Basically, what happens here is crude oil is directly sent to the atmospheric, as I told in the earlier portion, in that we directly introduced feed into our distillation column, distillation tower, without being processed by any preliminary separation equipment. So, as we can see here, this crude oil is taken, it is desalting is done, then it is again exchanges heat, and further it is heated in the crude furnace, and then from the crude furnace it is directly introduced into the distillation column. So no processing of this crude oil is done here, except there is a single step heating of the crude in this crude furnace is done. So what happens is in this system, what happens is there is problem of huge pressure drop in the pipe still heater. Pipe still heater here, basically it is the crude furnace, which is called the crude furnace. So huge pressure drop takes place. There is huge amount of, when we heat this crude oil in this crude furnace, uh, formation of huge amount of vapor takes place, due to which pressure drop occurs, and then there is maldistribution of vapor and liquid is observed in the tubes of the furnace. So there is no proper separation of, obviously heating is taking place here, heating of crude oil takes place, so some amount of crude oil is liquid is also there, then some vapor is also there, but there is no proper distribution of vapor and liquid is there, which creates problem when it is introduced into the distillation column. So to tackle with these problems, different other systems were introduced, which is the one among them is the pre-flash system, in which what we do is crude oil after desalting and again heat exchanging is introduced into a pre-flash drum. So what happens is this pre-flash drum, some amount of heating takes place here, and the lighter cuts are given off in the upper portion of the pre-flash drum, and the heavier cuts further exchanging heat from a heat exchanger and getting heated in the crude furnace. So what happens is this: the lighter cut is introduced into a higher higher tray at a higher height, and this this heavier cut, after getting heated in the crude furnace, is introduced at a lower plate. So in this, what happens is this proper distribution of vapor and liquid took place. So basically, this is the vapor portion and this is the liquid portion. So we have introduced vapor portion and liquid portion in different plates. So proper distribution of this vapor and liquid cuts have been taken care here. This problem have been taken care, and obviously there only mostly liquid portion is there, so there is not formation of huge amount of vapor, due to which pressure drop problem is also taken care in this case. Coming to the third part, which is the pre-fractionator. Simply in this, what happens is after the desalter and the heat exchanging, this crude oil is introduced into a pre-fractionator. It's basically a small distillation column where the lower, heavier cuts are further passes through the after getting heated in the crude furnace is introduced into our main distillation column. But the lighter cuts upon refluxing, lighter cuts are taken up from the top portion of the pre-fractionator, and after passing through this condenser, the some amount of reflux some portion of this lighter cuts are introduced as reflux into this pre-fractionator, which again passes through this pre-fractionator. And if there are any heavier cuts, then this will go through this line, and the lighter cuts are taken off as naphtha. Directly, the lighter portion mean basically in this pre-fractionator, we are removing the lighter cuts. Mean basically the naphtha is directly removed from this pre-fractionator. We are not passing these lighter cuts into the atmospheric distillation unit. We are directly taking them off as the naphtha. And if there are still some amount of naphtha left, then that will also be taken off then that will be taken off by the atmospheric distillation unit as shown here, and the side cuts are shown here. So basically it is shown here a pre-fractionator is installed to remove gases and a part of naphtha fraction from the crude oil. As we can see, a part of the naphtha fraction is removed, and these gases are also removed. Now coming to the dual flash system. What happens in the dual flash system? It is basically used to process two different kind of crude oil. So basically, if there are two or multiple type of crude oils are available. What are different types basically? Basically, it is if there are different proportions, mean different composition of crude oils are present. Different composition mainly refers to the presence of different amount of sulfur. In different kind of sulfur, different amount of sulfur is present in two different samples of crude oil. Then we cannot introduce them into a single uh, distillation column. We cannot introduce it together. So what we do is, as we can see here, suppose this is the crude oil A and crude oil B. Both are passed through the desalter, and after desalting, crude oil A is directly heated and introduced into the atmospheric distillation column. Whereas the crude oil B, it is after heating in the crude furnace, it is passed into a pre-flash drum from where the lighter cuts of this crude oil are introduced in the atmospheric distillation column, whereas the heavier cuts are given off as atmospheric residue B. Okay. So basically here the motive is to separate the atmospheric residue of the two different type of crude oils, because sulfur is mainly present in the atmospheric residue. In the lighter cuts, we will be ensuring that in the lighter cuts no amount of sulfur will be present, because if it will be present, then it may cause corrosion and different other problems when used in our daily life. So mainly sulfur presence or different impurities presence is associated with the atmospheric residue. So we need our main motive is to get these residue from both these different crude oils in different streams. So that's why what we did, we introduced this crude oil A we introduced directly into the atmospheric distillation column, whereas the crude oil B we only introduced the lighter cuts, as in the cut which does not consist of the sulfur content of this crude oil B. Okay, so the sulfur content of this crude oil, it was directly given off in the heavier cuts using this pre-flash drum. Okay, so in this way, if different types of crude oils are present, then we can use this dual flash system. Am I clear? So what happens is the separation of these gases is also done in some refineries. So the main purpose of this is to get our useful gases, basically the ethylene and propylene, which are the petrochemical feedstocks. So we need to separate them, and basically LPG, which is a mixture of propane and butane. So to supply LPG, we also need to separate this propane and butane for the production of LPG. So what happens is these off gases are taken off in this, and after heat exchanging, it is taken in this into this demethanizer. So what happens is here we are giving C1 to C4 plus cut. Okay, C4 and some amount of additional cuts may also be present. So C4 and C4 cut, C1 to C4 cuts are given in this demethanizer. So from here, the methane gas is removed. Methane, along with if some amount of hydrogen is also present, it is given off from this demethanizer. Okay. So what is left here? It is C2 to C4 plus cut is given off here from the below portion, which goes into the de-ethanizer. So what happens is de-ethanizer, it will give C2 cuts from the up and C3 to C4 plus cuts from below. So the C2 cuts, uh, C2 cuts, it may contain ethane as well as ethene. Okay. So to separate these ethane in ethene may be present, but some amount of acetylene may also be present. Okay, acetylene, which is basically C triple bond C. Okay, so this is undesirable. It is not required in our it is not required. So to remove this, what we will do, it is sent to a hydrogenator where hydrogen is introduced. This acetylene is sent to into a hydrogenator, which we may convert it into ethane and ethene portion, and this is further uh, sent to hy- this is the hydrogenation unit, and further it is sent to a ethane ethylene separator. So the ethylene is given off in the top from the top, and the ethane is given from the lower portion. Okay, so further this C3, now here ethane and ethylene is removed, and this C3 to C4 cut is introduced in this fifth unit, which is the depropanizer. So here we can see the lighter cuts of depropanizer. So propane portion is given from the upper, and the lower portion is left is C4 positive, which C4 plus cut is given from the below, which goes into the seventh portion, which seventh cylinder, which is debutanizer. So coming on to this, from here propane portions are there. So here propane may be there, propene may be there, and methyl acetylene may be there. That is the triple bond. Okay, triple bond propane mean methyl acetylene may be also present. So we don't want that. That is not desirable. So further again, it is sent into a hydrogenator where this methyl acetylene is converted. Mean it gets hydrogenated and it gets converted, transformed into propane or propene. So after hydrogenation, it is sent into two uh, depropanizers. So after passing through the propanizer, propylene is removed from the upper portion, and the lower portion it gives out the propane. Okay, and after that, this C4 plus cut is when sent to the debutanizer. So it gives off the butane portion from the upper side, butane cut, and the C4 positive. If there are some C4 plus cuts, mean more than butane cuts are there, it is given off from the below portion. So like this, these off gases are purified and separated into different cuts. Okay, am I clear?
Yes,
Hello.
ma'am.
Okay. Now coming on to different reflux systems. So what happens is uh, reflux systems are also of different types. It is not like that we are giving off what you guys know what is reflux, right? Hello.
No, no, ma'am.
Okay. Let me tell you what is reflux. So coming back to here, basically, let me show. Okay. So this reflux is basically giving off back. So suppose this is the lighter portion going up. Basically, it is a vapor. It is gas. It may consist of some amount of vapor as well. Okay, it is a mixture of gas and vapor. So what we do, it is given off, we pass it through a condenser. What happens it is cooling takes place in the condenser. So the gases will be non-condensable. Okay. So the gases, the lighter portion will not condense, but this vapor portion, this vapor portion will get condensed. It will get condensed into liquid form. So the heavier portion, it gets condensed, gets liquefied, and these are the heavier portion. We only want this gaseous portion above. So this gaseous portion, I'm telling you for example. Okay, let me tell you in a different manner. Suppose this is a column. We are giving lighter portions from here, okay, and different cuts are given from here. So this lighter portion may consist of some amount of heavier portion, okay. So this is passed to from a condenser. There it gets condensed. This heavier portion gets condensed, and lighter portion is still in the vapor form. So the lighter portion, we take it out, and this heavier portion, it is sent back, okay, sent back into the tower. So this lighter portion, heavier portion, which is sent back into the tower, it is called reflux. Reflux is uh, basically, jo, let me tell you, basically this portion is called reflux. Reflux is means circulating it again and again. Getting it?
Yes, madam.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Okay. So this reflux is basically circulating the unwanted portion again and again, so that maximum amount of purification can be done of a product. Okay. So different reflux systems are also available. It is not like only single form of reflux is available. There are various types of reflux can be done. So the one is pump around or tower top reflux. Tower top reflux is basically the part of the ascending vapor to the top section of the atmospheric tower is condensed by contacting the cooled pump around reflux liquid and flows down as the internal reflux. So this part of the ascending vapor, these are the ascending vapor. Suppose vapor are going like this. Part of this ascending vapor, it goes into here. It takes into this reflux. I mean, it goes into this pump around system. It exchanges heat, gets cooled. It exchanges heat, gets cooled, and gets vaporized. So after getting cooled, this vapor gets liquefied, and this liquid portion is introduced back into the tower. So this is the pump around reflux. Okay. So after what happens? This liquid goes below, and vapor it is coming up. So better mass transfer will take place. What is the purpose of this reflux? Continuous reflux. What happens? For better fractionation, for better fractionation, better mass transfer is required. So mass transfer between this liquid stream and vapor stream is required. So for that purpose, we do this continuous reflux of the side stream, so that the proper mass transfer between these liquid vapor phase and the liquid stream takes place, and better separation of the side cuts takes place. Okay. And the second form is the overhead reflux system. So it is basically of two type: cold reflux system and hot reflux system. The first one is simple operation. The whole of this overhead vapors. This is the tower top. Tower top is basically taking from the top of this tower. Overhead is taking the from the main over this tower. Okay. Tower top or pump around is from the side cut, taking the reflux from the side, and overhead is taking from the top of the tower. Okay. So basically, this overhead, whole of the overhead vapor, here vapor is there. So this is the whole vapor from this tower is taken. Heat exchanging takes place. It is sent to the, whole vapor from this tower is taken and pumped into this condenser. This is basically condenser, a reflux drum, or you can also call it a reflux drum. Okay. So here cooling takes place. After cooling, what happens? The heavier cuts in this vapor will condense and form two phase. This the non-condensable gases will be given off as the off gases, and the condensed of the heavier cuts, condensed heavier cuts will be taken and given back into the tower. So some amount, this heavier cut, it is also useful. It is a lighter cut only in comparison to other heavier cuts. So this is cooled, and this is basically the naphtha. Some amount is taken off as naphtha, and the uh, portion of the naphtha is given off as cold reflux into the tower top for better contact with the liquid portion and better fractionation. Okay. In sour water, it is basically the some amount of water is always present. As I told in the in the crude oil, if there are some amount of water present, then that will also come out in here as source stream. Okay, sour water. Then other form is the hot reflux system. So in this hot reflux system is what happens. We do the reflux in in two cycles. So from this overhead vapor is taken, it is pumped into the condenser. Just a second. Am I audible? Hello?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So in this overhead reflux system, sorry, there is a lot of network issues, so bear with it. Okay. So now overhead reflux system, in hot reflux system, what happens is we takes the overhead vapor, it is pumped into the condenser, and partial uh, partial condensation, partial cooling of this vapor takes place. Okay. So only a partial portion of this vapor gets condensed and is given as hot reflux, and the partial, as I told, so the remaining is again pumped into a different condenser where the non-condensable gases are given off as off gas, and the portion after cooling is given off as naphtha. So difference here and here is simply that two condensers are used here, and secondly the hot reflux. Why we are calling it hot reflux? Since partial cooling takes place, lesser cooling is done here. Basically we have cooled it in a like here we have cooled the temperature to a much lower temperature, so the whole of this whole overhead vapor gets condensed here. But here we have not cooled it to a very lower temperature, so partial portion gets refluxed, and we can also say that this reflux is at a much higher temperature compared to the one in the cold reflux. So that is that is why it is called the hot reflux. And as partial cooling took place, so the further left amount of overhead vapor is sent to the other second condenser where it gets completely cooled, and off gases, non-condensable gases are given off as off gases, and the remaining portion after cooling we got is the nap. Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Now coming on to the vacuum distillation, we are done with the atmospheric distillation. So why do we need vacuum distillation? Do you guys have any idea why do we need vacuum distillation? Why cannot we process this atmospheric residue in the atmospheric distillation column? Any idea?
We can only do up to diesel oils.
Sorry?
We can only refine up to diesel oils in atmospheric distillation.
Okay. A bit there, you're a bit close. So let me better explain it. So the reason why do we need vacuum distillation is we can only heat the crude oil up to a definite temperature. So what happens is if you heat it far behind the limit, uh, obviously for all that, as I in the earlier also in the starting slides I have told that there is a definite temperature range of processing of crude oil is there. So in that boiling range only we can we can process our crude oil. After that, what will happen if you will heat it below? Beyond that temperature, what will happen is the cracking of the that cracking of the atmospheric residue can start take can cracking of the atmospheric residue will start, and due to which what will happen if you try to process this atmospheric residue at room temperature, sorry, at atmospheric distillation unit column conditions. So what will happen? Cracking of the this atmospheric residue will start, and huge smoking will take place, and then coking will also take place. Huge amount of coke will form, and completely the atmospheric distillation unit, that fractionation tower, it will be inoperable. Okay. So coming on to the vacuum distillation, atmospheric residue contains several uh, for the atmospheric distillation unit, you can say that atmospheric residue, it is a residue for that unit, but it also contains several valuable cuts, so which we need to recover. Atmospheric residue, it cannot be fractionated at atmospheric tower, so the amount it needs to be processed at subatmospheric pressures, with basically 25 to 40 pressure at pressure of mmHg of pressure at flash day. Okay, so crude oil, basically, this atmospheric residue, which is to be processed at vacuum distillation, it consists basically crude oil is of two types. One is the lube bearing, and another is non-lube bearing. So, for vacuum distillation, vacuum distillation unit, there are two different types of crude oils are present. The one is lube bearing and another is non-lube bearing. So what is lube bearing? The lube bearing crude is basically which consists of large chains of large paraffinic chains are available in that crude oil. So these large paraffinic chains, they provide a mean lube lube basically it is the lubricating part. Mean it is used in various machines for the lubrication and for the reduction of friction between the moving parts of a machine. So basically, if a crude consists of lube portion, mean the hydrocarbon cuts which are responsible for the property of this lubricating property, they are basically large paraffinic chains. Mainly paraffins are responsible for lube bearing properties. So if that portion is present in the crude oil, then only we can extract the lubricating oil from crude oil fraction. If lube bearing portions are not available in the crude oil, then we cannot produce the lubricating oil from a feedstock. Okay. And non-lube bearing, it is basically the vacuum gas oil. It is a basically fuel oil, feedstock for different secondary process. I mean, uh, as I told, the different chemical processing as these hydrocracking, FCC, and all. So this vacuum gas oil, it acts as the feedstock for these chemical processes. Okay. Now coming on to fuel type vacuum distillation operation. So fuel type vacuum distillation is basically the production of vacuum gas oil. Vacuum gas oil. Okay. Vacuum gas oil, it is also called the fuel oil. Okay. So the atmospheric residue, it is flashed at required temperature in the vacuum tower. Uh, so the atmospheric residue, it is directly flashed into the vacuum tower feed plate, and it produces light vacuum gas oil and heavy vacuum gas oil. It is HVGU is heavy vacuum gas oil, and LVGU is the light vacuum gas oil. Okay, this portion. So the major properties which needs to be controlled for, mean if you want a good fuel oil, a good vacuum gas oil, so some properties that are need to be controlled, and they that are need to be present into our vacuum gas oil. Mean for getting a good fuel oil or good vacuum gas oil, these are the two properties which we need to control in our vacuum gas oil. Okay, that is the metal content and carbon residue. Okay, the lower operating pressures causes significant increase. Mean as we know that the vacuum distillation column, it acts at lower pressure compared to the atmospheric distillation column. So it causes significant increase in the volume of the vapor. Just a second. Is someone trying to join? Just a minute. Screen is visible?
Yes, ma'am.
Hmm. Okay. So what happens is, as we know that this vacuum distillation unit, it works at a lower pressure compared to the atmospheric distillation unit. So what happens? A significant volume of, more volume of vapor per barrel of the crude oil gets vaporized. As a result, huge vapor is present in the vacuum distillation column. So that's why the vacuum distillation columns are much larger in diameter than the atmospheric towers. You might have seen, if you might have visited some refinery, or maybe you might have visited a refinery, then you can see that there the atmospheric towers are lesser in diameter and longer in length, whereas the vacuum distillation columns are more in diameter and lesser in height. So that is the only reason. So in vacuum distillation unit, due to the huge amount, due to the lesser pressure, huge amount of vapor gets formed compared to the atmospheric distillation column. That's why the diameter of the vacuum distillation column is larger than the atmospheric towers. Okay. So here in the in the atmospheric distillation towers, we use bubble cap trays basically, which is the most traditional used trays. Here, bubble cap trays are not required. We use the grid trays, and side strippers are also not used here. So why side strippers are not used? Because in this vacuum distillation column, there are not many cuts available. Side strippers are basically to purify your cuts, to basically to ensure that two different cuts are not available, are not present in a single go. Okay, in a single cut, if suppose we are removing, if we are getting diesel cut, it is to ensure that no amount of kerosene is present in the diesel cut. So that's why side strippers are used. But in vacuum distillation columns, what happens is, we get one or two cuts only. Most of the times we get a single cut. There is not a presence of two or more cuts. So that's why side strippers are not mostly used. They are used in some cases, but not used in, mostly they are not used. Okay, and grid trays are also used in place of bubble cap trays. Bubble cap trays are they have better fractionation. They have better mass transfer, but in the case of vacuum distillation unit, no better mass transfer is required, since, as I told, mass transfer should be better in case when there are multiple cuts are there, so that complete extraction of a cut, of a single cut, comes out in a very pure cut comes out. But in case of vacuum distillation, as I told, that there are not numerous cuts available, only one or two cuts are only present at a single time. That's why bubble cap tray is not much required. Okay. So the internal design of some vacuum towers are different from atmospheric design towers, in that random pack. In some special cases, trays are also not used in vacuum distillation towers. Sometimes random packing is also used, but that is in special cases. Obviously, these are all general cases we are studying. But depending on the specifications of different countries, different cities, and different refineries, there are special cases also available. Okay. Is that clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, coming to the flow chart, here we were talking about fuel type vacuum distillation operation. Guys, give me a minute. Just a minute. पापा मेरी क्लास चल रही है, मैं करती हूँ थोड़ी देर में. हाँ बेटा, क्या कर रहे हैं? मेरी क्लास चल रही है, मैं थोड़ी देर में करती हूँ. Okay, audible and visible.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so coming on to fuel type vacuum distillation unit. Basically, we were talking about fuel type distillation unit. So coming to the flow sheet of the fuel type distillation unit, what happens is, from here we can see, uh, where is the, this is the atmospheric residue which we get from the atmospheric distillation column. Okay, we get it here, and after the heat exchanging from the different side cuts of the vacuum distillation unit, it is getting getting heat exchanging after exchanging heat from the different side cuts of the vacuum distillation unit, and also some amount of heat it is also extracting from the vacuum residue. This is a bit incorrect. It goes here. Okay. This atmospheric residue, after heat exchanging from the side cuts and the vacuum residue, it goes here, and from here it gets heated in the furnace, and after that, after heating in the furnace, it enters into the vacuum distillation unit. This is a vacuum distillation unit. Okay. So what happens is when the atmospheric residue is introduced into the vacuum distillation unit, what happens? The lower cuts, which is the liquid portion, goes below, and the higher cut it goes above. So it may be possible here also that some amount of higher cuts are available in this liquid portion, in this heavier cut. So for that purpose, we introduce the steam here. Okay. So this steam here is introduced. So this steam along with it when it goes up, it takes the lighter cuts if are present in this heavier cut. If lighter cuts are present, then the steam takes those lighter cuts along with it. So the lighter cuts along with the steam and the lighter cuts from this atmospheric residue, both goes together. It rises from the rises in the rectifying section, rises in the rectifying section. So there is this section, wash oil section. So what is this wash oil section? It is basically the reflux from the side cuts only. Internal reflux from the side cuts. This is the side cuts heavy vacuum gas oil, which is our obviously this is our product required. So from this heavy vacuum gas oil only, we take a little portion of this heavy vacuum gas oil as wash oil, and it is introduced in this tower. Why this is introduced? Because if this lighter portion, it consists of some amount of, sorry. Okay. If some amount of the along with this lighter cuts, if some amount of atmospheric residue mist is also coming. Hello? Hello?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. If some amount of the atmospheric residue mist is also coming, mean if some amount of heavier portion or some impurity is there, then this wash oil washes it off along with it. So that's why this wash oil is introduced, and further this lighter portion it rises up, and from here the heavy from at this plate this heavy vacuum gas oil is taken off, and this is not taken off directly. Some portion of it is again refluxed back. Why? As I told earlier, some portion is refluxed back to ensure that if there is a little bit amount of even some amount of impurity or the higher cuts are available, then they are given back as reflux. Okay. And further rising up, LBGO is taken off at this plate, and here also LBGO is also given as reflux. Okay. Another thing here, this what is this quench oil? This quench oil is basically some amount of and after this heavier cut, it is taken off as vacuum residue. Okay. So what is this quench oil? Basically, this vacuum residue, some amount of vacuum residue is refluxed back into the lower portion of this vacuum distillation column. Why? Because if there is complete, I mean, if the when this lighter cuts are given off in the as side cuts, and there is no heavier cut remaining below, which mean all vacuum residue is taken off. So what will happen? Huge formation of coke takes place, starts getting formation. A huge coke starts to form in the lower portion of the distillation unit. So to avoid that and to tackle with that problem, some amount of vacuum residue is again sent back into the lower portion of the vacuum distillation unit. So this is basically called as the quench oil. Okay. Second portion is the lube type vacuum distillation. So here, as I told that not all crude oils will produce the lubricating oils. The only crude oils which consist of the lubricating, mean the which act as the lubricating oil. Only those portion will act as the will produce the lubricating oil. Okay, so the mere lube oil base stock is given as the side cut here. As we can see, this is the atmospheric residue. It is after heating is given into the that vacuum distillation unit. Okay, and further as it rises up, it produces different cuts. Simply as I told, light cut, medium cut, heavy cut. Different cuts are given up here. Sometimes steam stripping also takes place in lube oil type vacuum distillation. Why? Because in case of lube oil production, there is huge mass transfer is required, better fractionation is required for the proper separation of this different lubricating oils. So, okay, so that's why if because in this case only single cut is produced. So there is no such problem of mixing of different. We can mix them together as well. We can use them by mixing together also. As singly, we can use it as gas oil. Okay, there is no such problem of mixing. If LVGO and HVGO gets mixed also, then also there is no problem. We can use it as gas oil. But when there are different cuts involved, there is a problem of purification. There is a problem of mixing of two different cuts. So that's why again here steam stripping is required. Okay, so steam stripping takes place, and some portion, the lighter portion, it is also given out as light vacuum gas oil, and the upper gases are from the overhead steam is given out, which is taken to the system for ejector system for production of vacuum for the vacuum distillation unit. Okay, so the lube type vacuum distillation, it is basically as I told, in the case of fuel type vacuum distillation, two properties required are the metal content and carbon residue. In the case of lube type, two that main two properties which are required are the viscosity and carbon residue. Okay, here important properties are viscosity and carbon residue. In case of gas oil, it is metal content and carbon residue. Okay, so vacuum tower is installed with bubble cap. Here, bubble cap trays are required. As I told that there are different cuts involved here. So for better fractionation, better mass transfer, bubble cap trays. Wherever better mass transfer is required, numerous cuts are there. Directly, we need to use bubble cap trays. Okay. In the case of fuel type, only single cut was present. There was no such problem of purification and mixing. That's why there we did not use bubble cap trays. Okay. So the side stripper columns are provided to maintain properties. As I told, the maximum allowable feed temperature, it depends on the type of the feedstock. It depends on how much temperature our feedstock can endure, and how much will not lead to cracking of our feedstock. Okay, maximum allowable pipe steel heater coil. It is basically simply it is furnace. Okay, so maximum allowable furnace outlet temperature is 400 to 430 degrees C, and the pressure of vacuum top tower, it is kept as 1.3 to 20 kilopascal. Okay, coming on to various major commercial fuel products which we get through this distillation columns. So the first one is liquefied gases. As I told, these are from C1 to C4 plus cuts, which consist of LPG. We don't get it as directly as LPG. We need to, as I told, the cold separation of the gases are done. From there, we can get our LPG. And its density is 0.5 to 0.55, and it is used in various applications such as domestic application, automotives, industries, etc. The second one is gasoline. It is of two types. The one is motor gasoline and another is aviation gasoline. So motor gasoline, it is basically used in our daily life in like motorbikes and cars, etc. Okay, so motor vehicles basically. Whereas the aviation gasoline, it has a it is used in basically in civil and military operations, civil and military vehicles. Okay, and its density is much higher compared to the liquefied gases. Another is kerosene. It is basically given as these are the generic names, and these are the products which we get in the refineries. So refinery, they only know these. Okay, sorry. Generally we know these, and in refineries we know these names. Okay, so the kerosene, it is basically used in aviations, in our in our domestic households. We sometimes use it for like basically kerosene in villages. You might have seen for lighting up and lanterns and etc. Sometimes for that purpose kerosene is used, but that is not that is not advisable. Basically kerosene, it is an aviation turbine fluid, and another is automotive gas oils. It is used as diesel fuel. Its density is higher than the above all, and it is used in motor vehicles and for light duty diesel oil. It is LDO, and heavy duty it is HSD, which is high speed diesel oil. And it is diesel oil is also of two types like LDO and HSD. Now distillate and residual fuels, they are basically more viscous and the more viscous and these are basically produced in the these all are produced in the atmospheric distillation column, and these are produced in basically the vacuum distillation column. Okay, sorry, this one is also produced in the vacuum distillation column. Okay, distillates, they are basically distillate fuels. Then lubricating oils are their residual fuels. They are used in power generation, in marines, domestic heating, then in industries for in instruments with moving parts and boilers in drying. Okay, there are various applications where these commercial fuel products are used. Okay, now coming on to utilities. Till now we have studied various processing. Now coming on to the utilities. Utilities are basically the requirements, essential requirements which will basically govern our distillation. Mean without these utilities you cannot run a plant. You cannot. It's not like you just have a distillation column and you can do distillation and you will run a plant. No, it is not possible. There are many other subsidiary requirements which are much more that require much more investment compared to a distillation column, and they are crucial part of a distillation, crucial part of a refinery. Okay, it involves such as we know, as you have seen in different columns, steam is one of the most crucial utility, then cooling water for cooling, then air and electrical power etc are very much required in a refinery. Okay, so it is also like failure of any of the utility. If there is a failure of any of the utility, it is possible that sometimes even refineries can shut down. Okay. So coming on to some of the important utilities such as the uh, depending on our crude oil type and depending on the the process used, such as a process that is the atmospheric distillation unit or the vacuum distillation unit, and moreover the different crude oils, as this data is for the Middle East crude. Depending on different factors, the requirement of different utilities is different. So it is shown here depending on these different factors, the requirement of fuel, requirement of electricity, then steam, then cooling water. It is all different. Okay. Now, basic refinery utility requirement. So, steam is used in, it is produced in base heat boilers and it is used in various stripping units, steam turbines, processing, process heat distillation, etc. Okay. The cooling air or water, it is produced in the cooling tower and it is used for the cooling purpose and the condensation of the steam. Then fuel gas and oil. It is produced as fuel gas from crude refining and natural gas, and it is used as process fuels in boilers and gas turbines, etc. Then electric power is one of the most crucial requirement. It is produced from it is taken from the local grid. It is produced in the local grid, and it is used in different for the running of different machinery and electric pressing. Okay. Now water is also required for sometimes for washing, then sometimes for other purposes, for heating purposes, for heat transfer, etc. This water is required. It is produced. It is taken from the nearby municipality, local municipality, or artisan wells, etc. And as I told, it is used for heating, for cooling purpose, then wash water, etc. Okay. Coming on to the vacuum producing system, a steam jet ejector system is used. Basically, a steam jet ejector system is used for vacuum producing. As you know that in the vacuum distillation column, vacuum is required for the distillation purpose. So a steam jet ejector system is used either a vacuum pump system used, or it can be a combination of both can also be used. Then emission and waste power product management. Waste product, basically it is hydrogen sulfide. If the presence of sulfur is there, if the huge amount of sulfur is present into our crude oil, then H2S, then gas sweetening process needs to be done. Otherwise, this, as I told earlier in the last week also, that the huge presence of sulfur, if it is present, then it may cause corrosion. It may cause corrosion in the, I mean, like our storage tanks, as well as in the distillation column also. So for that purpose, gas sweetening process is done. Then overhead store water and desalter effluents are processed by store water. As we know that a huge amount of water is used in the desalter, so that water, effluent water, it needs to be processed by water stripping units. Then the stripped water is then sent to wastewater treatment plants. Okay. Water stripping is basically removal if there is some amount of sulfur present in the water, or ammonia present, or some amount of salts are present. Then we need to remove all of them, and then this stripped water is sent to the water purification unit. Okay. Coming on to the one thing that I have been telling you from the start, and you might be wondering what is this pipe still heater. Okay. The pipe still heater, I told it is a furnace. It is a crude furnace in which the heating of the crude oil takes place. So crude oils are heated up to 350 degree in pipe still furnace before entering into the atmospheric distillation unit. This heater is a special type of furnace with large number of tubes connected. This heater, it consists of large number of tubes which are either connected into through belts in multiple rows. The still is built with two distinct heating sections. It is a picture of still. It is consists of two heating sections. The first one is radiant section. This is the radiant section, and this portion is the convection section. Okay. And other section, there is a small section present here, which is the shield section or the shock section. Okay. So coming on to the working of this, there are two types of pipe still heaters. The one is box type heater and other is vertical cylinder type heater. So box type heater, it is a box type heater. As we can see, it is a box. In the box type heater, radiant portion is in a box form. So radiant section usually is a box or is square or rectangular cross section, and tubes are arranged horizontally or vertical through the heating walls. So as you can see, these here tubes are arranged. These are the tubes which are arranged, either they are vertically or horizontally arranged along the walls of the tubes. And furnace and the burners are located either on the walls or lower portion of the heater. Burners are located on the floor or on the lower part of the longest side wall. Okay, so mainly they are used where large capacities and large heat duties are required. So what happens these here burners are present at the floor, and in the radiant section, heating occurs due to these burners, direct heat from these burners. Whereas in the convection section, then the heating takes place from the off gases of these burners, off gases that are coming from these burners. Okay. Moreover, this sealed and stock section, what happens here? This is a combination of both convection plus radiation. Here, heating takes place due to both the direct heating from the burners as well as of gases that are coming from these burners. Okay. Another type is vertical cylindrical type. The radiation section, the only difference is that the radiation section of this cylindrical type, in this, the radiation section of this pipe still heater is cylindrical shape having a vertical axis. Okay. And in this also, in this cylindrical type also, the burners are available at the floor of the cylinder, and the tubes are arranged in the circular pattern along the walls of the furnace. Okay. Pipe still heater design, as I told that it is very crucial. The computation of the flash vaporization of the vaporization curve of feedstock is required. Why it is required? To determine the vaporization temperature. To determine vaporization of the vaporization temperature of crude oil. This computation of flash vaporization curve of this feedstock is required. Okay. And sensible and latent heat duty of the up to the vaporization temperature is also required. Why? To see if there is any cracking. If there is any cracking occurring, cracking of crude oil takes place at higher temperature, that may decompose our crude oil. So to determine that, we need to see that till what temperature we can provide the heat so that the crude oil does not decompose. Okay. Now, radiant absorption rate suitable for operation. And then tube length is also very important, and stack gas temperature is important. And radiation section area and tube length, convection section area and tube length is also very crucial. So we need to design our pipe still heater by taking all these points into consideration. So for sweet crude is basically, as I told in the last week, sweet crude is without any H2S. Okay. If there is no if there is no H2S present, then it is called sweet crude. Then the radiant tubes and lower rows of convection tubes are typically 5% of chrome with, it is made of 5% chrome with carbon steel. Okay, this is the material of construction. Okay, this is the material of construction of this tube still heater. If H2S is not present, then this material is used for construction. And if H2S is present, then material of construction is different. Okay. Now coming on to another utility, which is heat exchangers. So heat exchangers, you might have heard that in a refinery, they are one of the most crucial components, crucial utilities. As at every point, you might be seeing that heat exchanging and cooling is required. Okay. So the first one is vapor heat exchanger, where uh, where the heat exchanging takes place between two vapor phases, mean a cold vapor, mean a colder stream, and heat exchanging by the vapor takes place, but condensation of the vapor does not take place. Okay. But there is no condensation of the vapor takes place. No condensation of the vapor takes place. Mean vapor cools, but without any condensation. Okay. That is the vapor heat exchanger. Whereas in the vapor denser exchanger, here condensation of vapor takes place. Okay. Mean temperature goes up a bit more, mean lower than compared to the vapor heat exchanger. That's why the condensation that takes place. Okay. Now cooler or after cooler. After the condensation, this liquid further, when it is cooled, it is done in the cooler or it is done in the cooler or after cooler. Okay. Then reboilers are reboilers where heating is done. Reboilers where heating is that heat exchanging is done using some stream from the distillation column only. Matlab, uh, from as in the atmospheric distillation column only, you can see the crude oil was heated using the different by exchanging heat from different cuts of the crude oil. That is the reboiler. Double pipe heat exchangers. It is basically this type. One stream passes through this area, and other stream passes through this. Basically, stream one passes through here, and the stream two passes through the annular area. So those are the double pipe heat exchangers. Basically, it is used where low heat transfer coefficient is low heat transfer rates are required. Okay, and the jet type condensers basically where it is used in the vacuum distillation column. So what happens is vacuum distillation column produces vapor and cooling mediums are in here in vacuum distillation column this produced vapor and a cooling medium they are intimately mixed together and heat exchanging is done by conduction. Okay, in this case the hot vapor and the cooling medium they are directly mixed together and intimate uh, heat exchanging takes place by conduction. Okay. Now coming to the double pipe heat exchanger, it is basically telling that what stream to put in what. Okay. It is basically the decision of which material is to be. It is basically a shell and tube heat exchanger. So in this, they are telling that what material needs to run through tube and what is to be kept into the shell. So it is giving that information. So if there are some dirty streams are there, then we need to put it through the tubes. Why? Because tubes we can clean it. We can take out the tubes and clean. That's why dirty streams needs to be put in the tube. Where because it can be easily cleaned. Whereas the shell, it is difficult to clean a shell. Then high pressure fluid it should be passed through the tubes. Then corrosive fluids needs to be passed through tubes, and water passed to be should be passed through tubes. Whereas the large volume liquids it should pass through shells. So why all these needs can pass through tubes? Because if there is some scaling or fouling from water or corrosion from the corrosive fluids and high pressure fluids because high pressure tubes can endure high pressure whereas shell cannot endure that much high pressure, so that's why all these needs to be passed through the tube. Whereas if there is a very large volume liquids needs to be passed, then it should pass through shell. Okay. Now coming on to the material of construction of heat exchangers. So material of construction of heat exchanger, it involves the majority of the heat exchangers are made from the 100% carbon steel, whereas the Admiralty brass tubes have been used if freshwater cooled exchangers are made. So Admiralty brass tubes are used. Why so? Because this Admiralty brass tubes it can withstand water scaling. Okay. And sometimes, instead of this brass tube, this carbon steel is also used. Why so? Because it is cheaper than this brass tube. So that's why sometimes this, instead of Admiralty brass tubes, carbon steel is used. So in hot hydrocarbon services, if there is some hot hydrocarbon passing through the tube, then 5% chrome material is used in the making of the heat exchanger. Why so? To prevent any corrosions. Okay. Due to this hot hydrocarbon residues, hot hydrocarbon steam, if there is any corrosion, so that this chrome material can resist that corrosion. Okay, for higher sulfur oils, if the higher sulfur content is present in the crude oil, then high chrome tubes and 12% chrome shell and channel linings can be done. Okay. Now coming on to the fractionating tower. So crude oil atmospheric distillation tower, it is the most important unit in the distillation in a refinery. So distillation tower with bubble cap trays is the most conventional type, as I told that for better mass transfer, if there are numerous cuts, then better mass transfer is required, and for that purpose, bubble cap trays are the best. Okay, so the other type of trays are used are the sieve trays, perforated trays, and cast iron is largely used for bubble cap for making the bubble cap trays. In vacuum column, pressed alloy steel caps are also sometimes used. Hello, am I audible?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes,
Okay,
ma'am.
okay. So the atmospheric column, it is sometimes commonly lined more intensively than a pre-flash column. So, atmospheric column, since it is much bigger in size than the pre-flash column, so sometimes lining is required. Why so? Because this pre-flash column it deals with small amount of crude oil, but atmospheric column deals with a large amount of crude oil. and most of the processing takes place in the atmospheric column. So if there is some amount of H2S present, or if some amount of NaCl, as we told, desalting is required. But if some traces of NaCl still left, and while coming in contact with the water in the distillation column, some amount of water or steam coming in contact with the steam, it may form HCl, and in the top portion of the atmospheric column, it may form traces of HCl and cause corrosion. So that's why, to prevent all this corrosion, sometimes the lining of the atmospheric column is done. Okay. So the top of the column is often lined. It is often lined with monal metal, to prevent the this HCl corrosion. Okay. And the lower two-third or three-fourth of the column is lined with 12% chrome cladding. Why? To prevent any sulfur corrosion. If some sulfur HCl, it is lighter gas, it goes into the upper tower, top of the tower. So that's why monal metal coating is done in the upper column, I mean the top of the tower. And this H2S, it is comes into the I mean lower portion of the tower. So, in the lower portion, 12% chrome cladding is done to prevent the sulfur corrosion. In the area of the feed inlet or flash zone 316, stainless steel may be required to prevent. If the feed inlet, if our feed, that is our crude oil, if it is high in naphthenic acid content, in naphthenic portion, in naphthenes, then the stainless steel coating is required. Okay. Vacuum ejector and condensers. Okay. A vacuum system usually consists of two main components, ejectors and condensers. Okay. So ejectors are basically, condensers are normally situated between ejectors. These are the ejectors, and suppose in between them condensers are present. So what happens is, ejectors is basically when what happens in when high pressure steam is ejected out of these ejectors, then vacuum forms. Okay. When steam is ejected, then if steam is ejected using these ejectors, then vacuum forms, pressure reduces, and vacuum is created. And in the case of condensers also, if high pressure vapor gets condensed, then vacuum gets created. This system reduces the vapor load handled by each of the successive ejectors. Thus, the ejector uses converging diverging nozzle technology that we will discuss in the next slide. When the pressure energy of low velocity steam flows through, when the pressure energy of a low velocity steam flows through a nozzle, the result is high velocity, pressure steam. That we will discuss here. What is steam jet ejector? What happens is, this motive fluid, it is a static system. There is no movable part in this steam jet ejector. So what happens is, this motive fluid, which is basically steam, medium to low pressure steam, which is 300 psi, less than 300 psig steam, is taken here, which moves in it is a medium to low pressure steam. Steam is expanded around this converging diverging nozzle isentropically, and due to which the pressure here decreases. And this is the vacuum distillation. This is the this portion is connected to the vacuum residue portion. Just a second. So as it is expanded isentropically, the pressure here decreases, and as the pressure is here pressure is less compared to this vacuum column. Sorry, it is not residue, it is column. Vacuum distillation column, it is connected to vacuum distillation column. So as pressure is low here compared to here, so it what do we say it? So this vacuum, this portion, it flows in this direction. Steam is expanded through converging diverging nozzle isentropically. Just a second. The pressure at this reason, the tip of the converging nozzle is much lower compared to the overhead. This is connected to the vacuum distillation column, the overhead from the vacuum distillation column. Overhead basically the top of the vacuum distillation column. This portion is connected. So as pressure here is less, so it uh, yeah, this is a connection between the vacuum distillation column and vacuum column overhead. So as the pressure is lower in this area, the discharge from the vacuum distillation column is pulled through this line, okay, which is called the suction load. And as the pressure is lower in this area, the discharge from the vacuum column is pulled through this line and it passes. The suction load then mixes with the steam. It mixes with this steam, the suction load and the steam. It mixes here, okay, and then it flows through the converging diverging nozzle, which is called, this portion is called the diffuser, and the suction load mixes with the steam together and flows through the diffuser. Again, this is expanded and the supersonic velocity is converted to pressure. Okay. Coming on to different types of pumps. Different types of pumps are required. As we know that in a refinery, various pumps are used for the for various purposes. So for pumping very like semi-solid materials or bituminous or asphaltic material along with steam, then reciprocating pumps are used. If medium viscosity oil is need to be pumped, then it centrifugal pump is used. And if very high viscosity oils needs to be pumped, then a rotary pump is used. Coming on to some of the offsite facilities, there are some different or some more utilities which are very important for a refinery to run. That is intermediate storage tanks. Intermediate storage tank is basically before transporting the crude oil or the side cuts, we need to store them for some times or to for either for blending or for some more processing or to meet final specifications. Some intermediate storage tanks are required, then blending pumps are required. Mean these side cuts, if they are not required, as in if suppose two cuts are need to be blended, so there are blending pumps are required. Then final product storage के लिए different storage tanks are required for storing the final product. Then effluent treatment like oil separation and all. So store water stripping, effluent treatment plants are required like for treatment of the sulfur and then treatment of the water. Different site plants are required. Then flare is required for mean for that disposing of the flammable gases, off gases. Flare is required. Then fire water system is required for for different purpose, fire pumps and to fire if there is some kind of fire accidents, etc. For that purpose also fire water systems are required. A blowdown system, it provides system provides for the safe disposal of hydrocarbon and discharge from it is blowdown system is for the safe disposal of hydrocarbon. Okay, by using a series of flash drums and ma- mean hello, am I audible?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes,
Okay.
ma'am.
So what happens is uh, this blowdown system, it is for the safe disposal of hydrocarbons. By using a series of flash drums and condensers, blowdown material is separated in mean for separating the vapor and liquid cuts for safe disposal of hydrocarbon. If there is a mixture of hydrocarbon which we need to dispose, then we need to separate the vapor and liquid separately. For that purpose, blowdown systems are used. Okay, then okay, what is the time? Okay, let me do it. Then another is oil movement and storage. So after the processing and everything, we need to we need to store and we need to transport the oil to different units as well for to market or for or to different final requirements where the requirement is there. So for that, receipt and storage of crude oil in tanks, then transport of crude to different processing units, And sometimes after getting the side cuts, different processing is required, but that processing is not available in that refinery. So for further processing, also we need to transport into different refinery units, and then receipt of intermediate feedstock and finished products, then blending of different components to prepare finished products according to specifications, delivery of finished products to oil tankers, lorries, barges, bullets, and pipelines. So some of the equipments which are used in uh, oil movement and storage. So storage tanks are of different types. So if you want to store a non-volatile material, then cone roof that cone roof storage tank is used, basically a fixed roof storage tank. Then floating roof storage tank, if there is a volatile liquid storage is required, if we need to store a volatile liquid, so floating roofs are used instead of fixed roof, so that if there is a formation of pressure due to the vaporization of the volatile liquid, then there is some space for escaping of the that pressure also, and there is not much disturbance in the volatile liquid to prevent any accidents. Then, if we need to store some gases like very gases at high pressure, then sphere tanks can be used. Then floating cum cone, storing volatile liquids at room temperature. Okay. Then pipelines for storing crude, for transferring crude, finished products, and pump suction and discharging. Coming on to the assignment questions. Okay. Uh, it would be good if you guys engage in, try to answer it. Okay. The first question is, identify the combination of one physical process and one chemical process practiced in the petroleum refinery. Anyone?
Option B.
What did you say, B or D?
B.
Okay. So the option B is atmospheric distillation and reforming. Okay, so let me discuss. The first option is atmospheric distillation and vacuum distillation. So both of them are physical processes. Catalytic cracking and hydrotreating, they both are also chemical processes. And desalting atmospheric distillation, this is a combined physical process. So your answer is correct, which is atmospheric distillation and reforming. So atmospheric distillation, it is physical process, and chemical process here is, yes, the answer is correct. Coming on to next, find out the equipment which is not a part of the crude distillation unit.
Option D. Piece breaker.
Okay. Yes, you are right. As we know that pipe still heater, which is the furnace, it is also a part. Fractionation tower is also a part. And then steam stripper is also a part of the distillation column. So the correct answer is this breaker. Okay. Coming on to the third part, crude oil assay is that. Anyone? Okay, let me explain what is crude oil assay. It is basically a crude oil assay. It is basically done to determine. Just a second. I need to drink water. It is basically a analysis done to provide detailed information on a crude oil, provide detailed information for refineries to enable them to optimize processing and predict product yields, etc. So it is basically a comprehensive study done on a crude oil using different data to give a better understanding of our crude oil. Okay. So anyone want to tell? Okay, so
That being option A.
okay. The option A is correct since it gives a As in the last class, I have told TBP, it is true boiling point, which gives a much better idea of how many cuts are present and what is the boiling point of different cuts present in a crude oil. So this is basically giving a better TBP gives a very good idea about what kind of crude oil or what kind of feedstock is given to us. Okay. Coming on to the steam stripping is practice in the atmospheric distillation unit. Anyone?
Option B.
Yes, you are correct. The option B is to strip off lighter fractions. As I told, steam stripping is done for further better purification of our distillate. So basically, to remove the lighter fractions of from our distillate, from our distillate. Distillate is basically the side cut. So if there is any lighter fraction present in our side cut, then we need to do the steam stripping, which removes the lighter cuts. Okay. Coming on to the disadvantage of a non-pre-flash system. Disadvantage of a non-pre-flash system in an atmospheric distillation unit is
Option B. Maldistribution of vapor.
okay. Yes, as I've told, there are two disadvantages of not using any pre-flash. The first one is the pressure drop, and the second one is maldistribution of liquid and vapor. So this is the correct answer. Coming on to the pump around reflux system in the distillation tower is that anyone?
Option A.
Yes, you are correct. Option A, which is it tells that the pump around system is nothing but it takes a part of the ascending vapor, that is the vapor coming from the top of the tower. It takes a part of that and condenses it by a pump around reflux and then introduces it as reflux. Okay. We take the, as I told in the pump around, let me show you. Yeah, pump around. A part of the ascending vapor, a part of this, these are the ascending vapor, a part of this vapor is taken and it is condensed and refluxed back into the column. Okay. Yeah, I have shown you. Sorry. Coming on to the next question, major properties to be controlled for vacuum gas oil.
Option C.
Yes, you are correct. As I told, for vacuum gas oil, major properties required are the metal content and carbon residue. Okay. And for the lubricating oil, what are the properties required?
Option D.
Yes, the properties required are the viscosity and carbon residue. Okay. Coming on to the next question, the important utility in the distillation system in the refinery is. One of the most important utility here is,
Pump.
Steam.
yes, you are correct. Steam is one of the most important utility. Okay, utilities are basically like steam, water, and cooling power, for cooling and then heat exchanger. Pumps are important, but steam is more crucial. Steam is used almost everywhere. Okay. Coming on to the last question, which is the most, sorry, the most conventional tray type used in the distillation column is,
Option C.
yes, you are right. As I told that for better mass transfer, the most conventionally used uh, uh, tray type is the bubble cap tray. Okay. And the last question, the desalting of crude oil is practiced in the refinery for,
Option A.
the option A is removal of metal salt containing water from the crude oil. Yes, desalting, what it does, it removes different salts present in the crude oil before introducing the crude oil into the distillation column. Mhm. The distillate fraction coming from the atmospheric, sorry, I guess this, coming from the atmospheric distillation unit are, okay, I did not discuss it. Let me tell you the various cuts, different cuts coming from the atmospheric distillation unit. They are basically overall called as the straight run cuts. Okay. So the answer is here straight run cuts. These are different. This is from the vacuum distillation unit. This is also vacuum distillation unit. It is from the atmospheric distillation unit, but overall the different cuts, if we call different overall collectively we call the different cuts coming from the atmospheric distillation unit. Collectively it is called straight run cuts. Okay, clear everyone?
Yes, yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Any issues? Any issues?
No, ma'am.
No, ma'am.
So we are done for the day. Just a minute. Just a minute. Don't leave the class. Let me see your attendance. Okay. Sorry for the inconvenience today. I'll try not to repeat this again. And okay. So if you guys have any issues, then you can ask. Otherwise, we can end the class. I will upload the video as well as the PPT for your reference. Okay.
Okay, ma'am.
Okay, ma'am.
Should I end the class?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.